Welcome back to Season 2 of the Business Culture Podcast, a platform to learn through the power of context and story. It's great to be back with you. This season is all about impact. I'll be chatting to impact makers across industries and geographies to understand how they have made true impact on their customers, colleagues, and communities. In this episode, I had the pleasure of spending time with a really good friend of mine, as well as General Manager of Pearl Valley Golf Estate at Val de Vie, Damian Wrigley. I've always believed that some of the great leaders in business are able to find the optimal balance between ambition and humility. Damien is someone who, for me, truly personifies an evolutionary mindset to leadership and culture development. With a solid grounding in both golf operations as well as food and beverage, his insights in this interview are worth their weight in gold. Let's hear his story. I'd love the listeners to get some context around your journey, starting out in the golf industry to where you find yourself today here at Pearl Valley.
My first sort of taste for hospitality was when I was 16 years old. I worked as a barman at a cocktail bar in a town called Fishhook, and the name of the bar was called Chezzy's, and it was kind of like the only bar in Fishhook, and it was like a gathering point for all the high school kids and beachgoers, and it was a very busy place, and that was like kind of my first taste of hospitality. And after that, wasn't really too sure what I wanted to do. So after school, I worked for a guy called Cliff Coombe and repped for 3 companies: Holdfast, Southern Ropes, Teal Roof Racks. And then after that, stumbled into teaching golf for a company I think it was called Playmore Golf, not as it is today, but something similar. And literally, I taught golf at Redham House in Takai area and the American International School, and that was kind of like my first sort of to golf. But I loved golf from as early as 12 years old, and I always knew I wanted to play the game. But after only going to Florida as a kind of like, I didn't know what I wanted to study. Actually, I did. I wanted to be an interior designer. And I remember going home and giving my mom the tuition fees for Boston High School of Design, and her saying, "Sorry, boy, that's just too expensive, single mom," and all that. So I went on a workaway program to Boca West in Florida, and that's really where my love for the golf industry sort of kicked into gear. Came back from that, got into the restaurant industry, worked at a restaurant in Cork Bay called Cape to Cuba. Rough and ready, but it was a lot of fun, you know the place. And then from there, after 4 years of doing that, I was like, sure, I'm timing out 6 days a week, long hours. Went on a holiday to Thailand, came back, didn't know what I was going to do. Got a call from Jeremy Lindquist, the general manager of Clovelly Country Club. Said, "Hey man, I know you're not working. I need you. Come see me." Started as a golf coordinator, marshalling, starting the field, and the rest is history. Kind of spent 10 years at Clovelly. Worked my way up to director of golf and club operations. I was announced to the members as the incoming general manager. Got a telephone call from Chris Bentley. He said, "Listen, I'm recruiting for a position in Paarl at a place called Pearl Valley. I think it'll be perfectly suited for you. Can I put your name forward?" I interviewed for the job, and I got it. And here I am today as the general manager of Pearl Valley.
Dave, that's quite a story, and it's fascinating that you've had an experience both in food and beverage and in the golf space, which a lot of the guys that head up golf clubs these days haven't had that benefit of both the hospitality or the food and beverage side as well as the golf. Do you think that stood you in good stead now being a general manager of a club that really focuses obviously on golf but significantly on the food and beverage side as well?
I think it definitely has stood me in good stead, and it's always looked quite good on the CV. But I think more so is the fact that I've done work and studied through Kamasa as well as I'm a PGA professional. I think that's also stood me in good stead, because you have the balance of both, club management and the understanding of the game of golf in all facets, and then the food and beverage, which is, as we know, a vital part of the income stream at any club.
Yeah, look, I mean, I'd love to unpack that further, because I think the grooming of any general manager and your experiences and your lessons getting to where you are now is obviously key. Can you share in your experiences both at Clovelly, I guess, and even before that, and now at Paul Valley, any moments or aha moments or anything that kind of stood out for you as a real leap in terms of growth, or anything that kind of really where you had to be thrown in the deep end and had to really kind of learn how to master that new challenge? Is there any time or chapter that really stands out?
I think there's a couple of challenges with food and beverage, Rob. For me, sometimes it's around menu conceptualization. A lot of the times when dealing with head chefs, executive chefs, they create menus that they want to create rather than what members of those clubs want to eat. And that's the one. And the other is, if you go the outsourced route with your food and beverage sector, there's always this constant balance between what they want as a sort of a tenant and what you want as the club operator, because obviously you're representing your members and their needs, and they're representing their business and their turnover. So there's always a constant struggle with price. They normally want to hike it up. You want to keep it as competitive as possible, and they want to create menus that they think are trending, when in actual fact golf club menus are very different to menus that you would experience at restaurants outside of the club sector. So I think for me, if you can, I would say always try and do your food and beverage in-house. It just gives you the ability to control the narrative, be part of the menu conceptualizations, have that strong relationship with your executive chef, and it fits, I think, better, more harmoniously into the whole offering. For me, it's important to have your head professional, your director of golf, your course superintendent, your executive chef, and your GM all really being on the same page, because essentially that is the golf offering in completeness.
I think that's a brilliant bit of advice for anyone who's kind of not sure on what direction to take in that sense. You've also had the benefit of working in two pretty different types of clubs, if I can put it that way. How would you describe the difference between Clovelly and a place like Paul Valley? And secondly, do you think that you've changed your style or your approach given the fact that they're different in terms of how you've operated in the two environments?
Absolutely, Rob. They are like polar opposites. I mean, Clovelly is a traditional hidden gem in the Silvermine Nature Valley. Opened in 1932, originally owned by Gus Ackerman, taken over from Raymond. It's very much a member-run club with a committee. A lot of rounds, high traffic. It stands still almost. It's timeless. It's for things to happen there, it takes time. A lot of meetings, a lot of committee meetings. It's committee run to a degree, so you've got to get the treasurer by and the club captain by, and you've got to sell it to your membership. Whereas Paul Valley is it's a fast pace. It's always keeping abreast with industry trends. It's a 5-star sort of premium destination, so there's high expectations to always deliver premium. So that comes at a price in both staff payroll and also operational expenses, and it's also developer owned, so it's privately owned. So our committee here is advisory. So literally, it's working closely with the board of directors, the shareholders, and I find things here happen very quickly. If you go to the board with a good idea or a good concept, if there's buy-in at that meeting, it's literally fast action, fast rollout. I like both. both have something for them. What I like about Pearl Valley is it's everything you need you can get if you're motivated properly. So there's no excuse not to deliver. The relationship here with members is very different to a Clovelly. A Clovelly, it almost felt like the membership base was an extension of you. They were like your family. Whereas here, they're almost at arm's length. They see you as a general manager that is here to do a job, to perform a function, make sure that their investment is protected, their course remains within the top 5 of the country, and that's it. Everything must work. There's no forgiveness for anything less. Whereas Clovelly was a lot more relaxed, and it was a good learning experience for me. It was a safe club to work at. Being personally mentored by Raymond Ackerman was amazing, and I learned a lot there.
Yeah, I mean, you've explained it comprehensively there, and it's clear to see the differences. One of the things, having known you for quite a while, is that you've always built an immense amount of respect, both in the industry, but as well as the people that you've worked with and managed over the time. And what I admire a lot about you is that you've never had to take a authoritarian kind of approach to how you do things. You get people to kind of follow you because they choose to follow you rather than feeling like they have to. Is that just part of your makeup in terms of personality? Is it just how you've always been? Was it a conscious decision to take that approach? Just talk to us a little bit about how that has been part of your makeup.
Sure. I don't like conflict. I mean, I'll always try and work. I'm a problem solver. I'm a strategic thinker. I'm a visionary. So for me, I like to get buy-in from my team. It irritates me if people don't want to come on board, and it's almost like I go out of my way to try and convince them to come on board, because I understand the value of team buy-in. Because at the end of the day, you're only as successful as your weakest link, and if you get total buy-in and people like what you're selling, they like what you're putting on the table, that's a win for me. I feel that I've always tried to, in work, be consistent in the decisions that I make, be consistent in how I treat people, and I like a management style that's more toward the leadership style than the managerial style. And I like to take the longer approach. I like to look into the future and pave the way. So yeah, I've been fortunate in that I've got to work with some amazing people. When I first started at Pearl Valley here, it needed a lot of work. It was a very fragmented, broken team. So it's taken me, almost 5 years to build a team around me that I feel like I can really take Pearl Valley to the future and to the next level. And it takes time, it takes a lot of commitment, a lot of energy. But the rewards, when you look back, it's very fulfilling.
Yeah, you've certainly built an amazing team here at Pearl Valley, just in terms of good people, good human beings, that I think complement your style and complement. I guess you always look for people who complement your weaknesses in a way and may make the team as a whole strong. I'm curious in that sense to know how do you go about bringing in new people, into the team? Do you look for something specific? Is it a very conscious decision to bring in a certain type of person into Pearl Valley, or just speak to us a little bit about how that process works.
Yeah, for me, I think over the years, when I was sort of a little bit younger in management, or sort of almost like less experienced, I used to look at the CV and I was impressed by skill set. And, over the years I learned that skill set meant nothing. Personality, attitude meant way more. So in the last sort of, I would say, 4 years, I've really been hiring more for attitude. And whether I see, those individuals as being right for the culture of the club. And I think recruitment is a massive part of the success of any business, and it's something that's quite easily overlooked. So we developed together with HR almost a new way of recruiting. We wouldn't ask. We moved away from asking the traditional "Where do you see yourself in 5 years?" sort of thing. And that's kind of, it's worked. I mean, every now and again, you get someone that interviews very well, and you're like, "Wow, this is a good fit." And 3 months down the line, you're like, "Phew, okay, I didn't see that," and they don't last. But recruitment is very important, and attitude, hire for attitude.
Yeah, I can't attest to that enough. I think there's, they say that the CV is the greatest work of fiction in the modern working world, which I tend to agree with to some extent, But, unpacking that a little bit further in terms of building a culture and I think creating an environment where people feel like they can, reach their potential or they can express themselves, whatever the ambitions of that person are. I think you've done an amazing job of that here at Pearl Valley. It's not an easy thing because there's often challenges that come day in and day out that detract from your culture or what you want people to feel. How have you guys managed this whole pandemic and the challenges that have come with it? And I mean, it's been amazing. You guys have got still such a strong, resolute team, albeit a smaller team, with which many companies have had to do, but still maintain a great experience, a great value proposition. Any things that you can share in terms of what you guys are focused on to achieve that in this time?
Yeah, Rob, good question. For me, I think a lot of it kind of happened as a result of us becoming smaller, with us not being able to retain, our full staff complement pre-COVID, and what happened over those sort of hard lockdown months is, we instantly had to learn how to conduct business virtually. So we shifted to Teams and Zoom, and as heads of department, we were in probably more contact through that lockdown than we were in typical day-to-day business, which really allowed us to solidify, okay, first of all, what's going on? What is a pandemic? I mean, we haven't been here before. No international, no tourism in the Western Cape. That's a massive knock. Okay, how do we go from being kind of so reliant on international to now having to basically be sustainable with a local-only market and 50-60% less staff? So we had to get out the box. We had to talk, and as a GM, you feel vulnerable at a time like that because you don't have the answers, but you are looked at to have the answers. You're looked at to be positive. Everything's going to be okay. When you put your head in your pillow at night, you're like, what the heck am I going to do? And that was the best thing ever, because it allowed me to show my vulnerability, but in a safe way that made staff around me feel comfortable to come up with ideas and solutions. And I think that's kind of what's made us stronger. And a lot of what we built over those months has now formed the framework of the team dynamic now.
Yeah, I think that, just to emphasize that point that you mentioned there about being happy to not have the answers and tap into the insights or perspectives of a solid team is really bringing the potential of the team to the fore. Sort of that old mentality of the boss always had the ideas and always had the way forward. Yeah. Certainly doesn't seem to be the case anymore, and nothing like a pandemic to really bring out the true potential of your team when you really need it, I guess. So, well done for doing that. I think the results speak for themselves, and it's amazing to see a golf club and a golf experience like this actually move forward in difficult times, and be able to create the experience that you still create with so many fewer staff. Whether it sets a precedent for the way forward, who knows? But I think it's shown everyone what can be done with less resources. You're a golfing man, and you're a golfing nut, I think, like myself. I'd love to pick your brain on on the golf side of things and ask you what's your opinion on where the game is going from an amateur perspective. There's a lot of talk at the moment around technology and all these things, and that the ball's going too far and that the pros need to be pulled back. What's your view on the experience for the amateur and what they should be allowed to and not be allowed to do on the golf course?
Well, I'm going to break it. I mean, that's quite a diverse question. I mean, I'm going to break it into two parts. I'm going to talk purely three parts. Where the game of golf is now is in a very exciting place. It's experiencing growth spurts all around the world. Record round numbers being played. It's a safe environment. It's great to be out in nature. It's something that you can tag on to travel. It's something you can do with your children, with your wife. It's just a wonderful networking sport. It's incredible. On the amateur side, I think for me, whatever's going to make amateur golfers enjoy the game the most, do it. If it means giving them 300-meter drives, if it means letting them wear the coolest shoes and clothes with wild and wacky materials, if it gets participation up, do it. On the professional side, I would say what's probably going to happen, Rob, is if traditional golf courses that have stood the test of time are being compromised as a result of technology, whether it be clubs, balls, etc. I think what will probably happen is similar to a Formula One type scenario where there will be kind of a more neutral golf ball, or golf clubs will be tuned down a little bit or something just to bring them back a little bit. But having said that, even with all the extra length and everything that's going on, there's been courses that have been put forward for US Opens and Open Championships that have showed that, they're still difficult. Golf's in a great place. It's traction is big. Yes, it's a little bit difficult to learn, and it takes a bit of commitment. But if you make it fun and engaging, we've seen good numbers coming through our new membership programs, our junior academy, and I think golf's looking up.
I'd love to pick your brain on that. What you mentioned there just briefly on the junior academy. You guys have done amazing work here, cultivating a wonderful program for the juniors. Just give the listeners some insight into that and how it's come to be what it is today.
So when I started here, we'd outsourced all our instruction on the golf side, and Ray Neersling, one of our shareholders and marketing director, we always said we wanted to take it in-house. And we waited for the right time when our previous instructor's contract came to the end. We didn't renew it, and we took it in-house. We created the Pool Valley Golf Academy and also the Junior Elite Program. We compiled a very specific offering to residents as kind of like a trial base. We weren't quite sure. We're still feeling it through. But we're almost 2 years into it now. We've got 24 kids enrolled in our Junior Elite Program. They do the TPI. They do a number of on-course sessions, range sessions, mental sessions with psychologists. We've got Richard Sterney and Henny Otto on site that help them sometimes. We've got parents who are involved, and we're starting to see massive dividends being paid through now with the way that they're competing in the Boerland events. They're playing in the Premier Leagues and are doing really well. So as a feeder program, it's been exceptional. And from the junior elites that we have, I wouldn't be surprised if 2 of them, maybe 3 of them, go all the way to definitely collegiate golf and ultimately pro circuit golf. It's amazing to see.
Yeah, that's so awesome to hear that there are more of these junior academies coming up, because it's just remarkable what our country has been able to produce, given the number of golfers that we have. I think we had like 7 or 8 players in the top 100 in the world now, something to that. It's unbelievable. What do you put that down to? I mean, is that, I think we had just over 100,000 golfers in the country. I mean, that's minuscule. I think Germany is 600 or 800,000. You've got places with far more amateur golfers and far fewer guys reaching those heights that our players have. What do you think it is? Do you think it's a combination of things or something specific about?
South Africans are tough. They've got grit. They've got drive. Some of the golf courses that some of the best players in the world grew up playing are definitely not USGA spec top manicured courses. They can play from stones. They can play from wherever. They're going to get the ball in the hole. There's also a great camaraderie amongst the South African players. It's almost like a mentorship, like a alumni group that basically, are there to, coach and train the youngsters coming through. I mean, look at the role that, Gary Player's played in Garrick's career. He's always been there. And, if you look at the likes of Louis and Brandon, I mean, they're just incredible. Ernie, Retief. It's just this pedigree, this line of good player after good player, and I think they definitely help each other. But it's incredible to see. I don't know what you can really, if you can sum it down to one thing, but all I can say is it's impressive.
Yeah, it truly is. It's I think you're spot on in terms of that hardness, resiliency, etc. that we have here. Just some amazingly talented sportsmen in general, actually, if you look across the sporting codes. In terms of the events that you've been to or that you watch and see on TV and things like that, what for you is the absolute pinnacle tournament event out there that exists in the golfing world?
Just use one, or
just one.
It's going to be between the Ryder Cup and the Masters, obviously. I'm going to probably have to say the Masters, just because there's nothing like it. The prep into that golf course, the pedigree of player that it attracts is just second to none.
Yeah, it seems to be the only place or the only thing you watch really that it looks amazing on TV, and then they say obviously when you go there it exceeds your expectations. So I can only imagine the level of sophistication and attention to detail that must be apparent in every.
I don't know if it was Mike Lemus that was telling us. I think he worked a tournament, and he was always one of his mates was the manager at the time, and he was saying the attention to detail is second to none. Like 5 days training on how to clean a toilet, and crowd control, and merchandising, and it's just there's no stone unturned. It's like incredibly organized, and it's just the whole sort of the suspense building up to the event. The drive down to the clubhouse, the players' dinner. What I like is that it's almost remained timeless from when it first began to now. They haven't changed a lot, but yet it's still relevant, and it's still very much a part of where golf is now.
I think you're spot on there. What's amazing is that they've kept the traditions or kept the core of it, as you say, but in the technical advancements or the technology, for example, I don't know if you saw the most recent app that they have, but you can watch every single player's shot of every single hole. Which is incredible, and just those kinds of things, which they seem to be always setting the tone on how they do it. But the other one that you mentioned, which I absolutely love as well, is the Ryder Cup, and I think many people will agree it's just incredible to watch. I want to bring or connect the dots between the team dynamic that is the successful Europeans, and looking at it to running a golf club and an operation. The Europeans always seem to be better than the sum of their parts. They always seem to outperform, which on paper the Americans being the better team, as it were. I mean, there's a lot of talk around the culture, and there's a lot of talk around the fact that they enjoy each other's company and things like that. But what do you think, having watched the tournament and the many iterations of it, do you have any personal opinions on why the Europeans seem to be able to be so much better, even though on the world rankings they're not seen as being as good individual players?
For me, the European team always, I don't know, for me, it just feels like there's so much more passion and heart throughout the team, whereas on the American side, it's almost like they're a bunch of individuals that have come together for a team event. I also feel that the Europeans play for more than just their country. They play for Sevi, they play for the past greats, they play for their mothers, their sisters, their fathers. I don't know, it's just something about them. Europe it's just an incredible, I don't know, it's just exciting.
Yeah.
America is kind of like, they're great players, they're clinical and they're perfectionistic, and they've got every piece of clothing is perfectly embroidered with the flag in just the right place, and they've ticked every box. They're as ready as can be, but there's a underlying sort of X factor that Europe seems to have over them. But it's one of those things, you can't quite place it. But it's like listening to American commentary, like at a PJ event, and listening to European commentary on the European Tour event. I prefer the European Tour commentary. It doesn't put me to sleep. It's witty. It feels like they're in the living room with you, whereas the American commentary seems like a dissection of play. It's kind of the same thing.
I love that answer. It's that sort of, you can't put your finger on it, but it's that heart. It's that sort of, just like that feel.
When they called out, man, when was it that? When Sevi had just passed that win, I can't remember.
Yes, yeah.
I know.
Yeah, geez, there were a couple of, not many dry eyes in the crowd or in the team. I think after that happened, I think Ollie was the captain then. Olafabo was the captain.
Incredible. Never forget that.
I remember Rose pointing up to the skies at one point. I love that answer. It's just there's such an amazing narrative behind the Europeans. There's a story playing for greater than just yourself. And maybe that is the answer. The Americans have become so accustomed to playing for themselves week in and week out, and their own world ranking and their own, strokes gained or whatever you want to look at, versus the European team, which is just so. It's about it, when you watch it. It's like watching more than golf. It's watching a true story unfold with them, and it's. I think if the answer was any more apparent, I think the Americans probably would have copied it by now.
Yeah,
so that's probably why it's quite difficult to understand. But Damien, in closing, I also wanted to just touch, ask you the question around, looking forward and looking ahead into where things are going from here. Do you think that what COVID has done and the impact that it's had is going to be something that is a precedent set going forward in terms of how clubs run and the changes? Or do you think that things will revert back to largely what they were like before the pandemic?
I'd like to say that, what the pandemic has taught us and shown us, and the changes to our approach to particularly the golf business will stick and remain. I would probably be wrong that most likely we'll run back to, internationals. We'll start charging more again. We'll forget about our locals. I mean, I'm sorry to say it, but we should remain as we are, and we should appreciate our South African business, and we should work in collaboration with each other all the time, not just when we need each other. I think there'll be some clubs that will try and keep that approach going for as long as possible, but the human race they're a strange bunch. They're quick to forget. They want easy. They want as much as possible. And I don't know. From our side, at board level we've said that let's be sustainable now. Let's adjust our business model so that we're still profitable without international travel. And when it does return, let's view that as profit, but without having to hike their rates to the rates that they were, and without the restaurants having to charge what they were, and the hotels, etc. But for so long it was such a massive part of driving our economy that we got so used to it. And I think if it was to return, we might go back there again. I hope not.
Yeah, it's difficult. It's so difficult to say, given the uncertainty. But I think it's again, it shows the ability to adapt. Obviously here at Pearl Valley, but in the golfing sense as well. It's been lovely to see the degree of communication and collaboration between clubs and between general managers.
It's been exceptional, and also between the PGA, the Club Managers Association of South Africa, Golf RSA. They exist, but they never really speak. The pandemic got them speaking. Now that golf's kind of back up again, they're not speaking as much as they should. And they were better. It was better for the game when they were. But people, organisations, they go back into their lanes. I suppose it's just how it is.
It's a good point. The human condition is that we typically are reactive rather than proactive, and I guess that's one of those instances where we've gone back to what we used to. But yeah, hopefully the powers that be will see the value of what it brought and start to collaborate a bit more, because I couldn't agree with you more. I think there's huge value for the industry at large for those bodies to be collaborating and synergizing more. But Dame, just to end off with, as I always like to do at the end of our conversations, to acknowledge you. I think one of the things that I've learned the most from you in our time of working together has been the fact that, as I said earlier, you've stayed very true to who you are as a person and how you've managed and led people. I think a lot of managers and leaders, when they get into a position, they change who they are and therefore don't stay true to themselves. So I admire very much how you've gone about that and stayed so true to yourself.
I have to credit my wife for that.
And I'm sure a couple of brownie points will come with that as well. But I think just that and the fact that whilst things have never been necessarily easy, how you've run towards the challenge and how you've managed to build a team here, which in all my years at Pearl Valley and experiences has never been better. So I think from an industry point of view, you can be incredibly proud of what you've achieved. And I couldn't more wholeheartedly wish you everything of the best in the months and the years that come. And no doubt when all is said and done, much like we look at the likes of a Jeff Claus or a Michael Emes, etc., as the doyens of the industry, we will do the same for you when you one day have much more grey hair and decide to hang up the boots, as it were. Thanks, Dan. Appreciate the time.
That's it for today, guys. If this episode brought you value, please do subscribe to the podcast series. And for more information on building your organizational culture, visit us at rcaconsulting.biz. We'll see you in the next episode.